Hi, I'm Rohit. Welcome to my channel where we talk about self-love, soul love, and divine love. Now, I've had people ask me, if your focus is on love, then why do you keep talking about the mind? And it's a great question. Thank you for asking. The reality is this: the mind, if not managed properly, becomes a great obstacle to self-love and to relationships. Our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions tend to color our reality. So until the obstacle can be removed, it's really hard to get to the core of love. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the biggest obstacles I find in my practice, and that is when people talk about how they feel that they're not good enough. Something is wrong with me. So I'm not lovable, nothing good ever happens to me, I'm flawed or messed up, I can never do anything right. If you've ever had any of these kind of thoughts, this video is going to really be for you, because we're going to break the myth that our mind has been spinning, the story, the BS, if you want to call it that, that the mind has been making up. The first thing we're going to do is challenge the mind. We're going to point out the flaws in its thinking. And the first flaw you'll find is that the mind is generalizing. It is saying that this will never happen, or bad things always happen to me, always, never, always. These are some key words to look out for. No one will ever love me. These are all overgeneralizations. And you'll find that whenever these exist, the mind will take a limited situation. Perhaps you haven't met anyone lately, or perhaps some bad things have happened to you, and it will take it and generalize it to mean that bad things will always happen to you. And when you start thinking in terms of always and never, the problem is it seems like an abyss that is endless, that it will just, that the bad things will never end, that love will never come. And when you get there, you get hopeless. And when you are hopeless, there is no point in going on. You feel no motivation to be able to get out of bed. The depression can set in. Or at the worst case scenario, you could feel like nothing good's ever going to happen, and suicide could be the next option for you. All of this is what I refer to as the mythology of the mind, the myths the mind makes up, the stories it makes up. And these have to be challenged. You cannot let them go by. They cannot be just allowed to pass. They must be called out, just as you would anything else, right? If somebody misbehaved, you would call them out. If somebody yelled at you or abused you or your loved ones, you would call them out. If somebody did some nonsense, cut in front of your car, or did any other thing, scratched up your car, you would go out and you would be upset, and you might even file a complaint against that person. Why don't we do the same with our mind? The mind is the one tormenting us, torturing us, in fact. And it is not our friend. In an ancient text called the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, for one whose mind is under control, it will be the best of friends. And for one who has failed to control their mind, it will be the greatest enemy. We need to start from the fact that since no one has trained us in how to be able to tame or control our mind, it is in fact behaving as our greatest enemy. We are in fact sleeping with the enemy. We are listening to and being brainwashed by the enemy. Now, the same mind can be made into your friend if properly managed. But if not, it can be a cause of tremendous pain and suffering. And there is no greater pain and suffering than to believe that you are not good enough. So let's continue the process of challenging the mind. Let's ask, what is good enough? Who decides? What is the criteria? By what yardstick will you determine whether I am good enough or not? And is that yardstick actually valid? If it's the yardstick of my parents and society and family and peers, well, is that necessarily my yardstick? Is that necessarily what I want to live by? Or what is true for me? Because I'm unique. I am not like anybody else. And so the yardstick has to be unique to me as well. I cannot be going around comparing myself to others, because that'll never be true. I am not you and you are not me, and I am not like anybody else and you are not like anybody else. We are all incredibly unique. And given that, what does it mean to say to yourself, I'm not good enough? Enough? Really? What's that? Or I'm flawed, or imperfect. And the fact of the matter is, no one is perfect. Everyone has flaws. And so Where are we going to start? Are my flaws better than your flaws? Your flaws better than mine? Are we going to make some comparison between our flaws? No, we're not actually looking at that. The problem is we are not questioning or challenging or putting our mind to task. That can be a very unfortunate situation because we've got something inside us that, if not managed, can actually destroy us, and we have to be very cautious. The next skill you will find very helpful in being able to deal with your mind is to consider the opposite. What's the other possibility? Consider a totally different possibility. What if being not good enough actually meant that I am good in some ways and maybe not good in others? And that might be a more realistic assessment. I do have strengths and I do have weaknesses, and so does everybody else. There is nobody on this earth that doesn't have strengths and weaknesses. Not being good enough can actually be a very positive thing. It means I'm good enough in some areas, not good enough in others. Fantastic. Way to go. I think it's important to consider that. We need to become amused by our mind and how it spins things around and not be taken in by it. I find a lot of people sit down sort of almost in a trance, as if they were in a stupor, as if they were mesmerized by their mind, and they just sit there listening to its nonsense chatter. The most dangerous thing the mind tells us is the statements of self-doubt, and these are all statements of self-doubt. What if we could spin that around back on the mind, spin it right back, and let the mind know that the opposite is also true? If you say that something is wrong with me, well, then what's right with me? Let's take a look at that. If you say that bad things have happened to me, then good things have also happened to me, because this and its opposite are simultaneously true. I talked about this in an earlier video, and that tool and that skill will come very handy now. This and its opposite are simultaneously true. So whatever the mind is telling you, look for its opposite, and you will find great truth right there. If you say that no one will ever love me, well, how do you know? You're trying to predict the future. Can it predict the future? Is it capable of predicting the future? No one's ever questioned. Are its predictions accurate? Does it come up with statements that actually work? What it is very good at doing is predicting the future and then making sure the future that it predicted actually happens. That it is good at doing. And that I call BS. I can say that nothing good will happen and then I never go out and never do anything. Or I can say that no one's ever going to love me, and I make sure that I don't let anybody in my heart, I don't meet anybody, I don't go out on a date with anyone, I never find anyone. Yeah, I can make sure I do that. But who's doing that? The same mind that created the theory, that created that illogical statement, is now going ahead and proving its own theory. Nonsense. And the final weapon I would like to give to you to use against this untamed mind is to embrace the situation and become shameless about it. So if you're told that no one's ever going to love you, you know what? I'm going to love me. And I know for a fact that once I love me, I'm going to become so attractive that people are going to want to love me too. Or if you say that I'm flawed and messed up, of course I'm flawed and messed up, and I love my flaws. I love being messed up. I love the imperfection of who I am. It's what brings flavor and color and character to me. And I love the character that I have, just the way it is. And if you say something is wrong with me, of course something is wrong with me. And I like that. I'm quirky. I'm different. I'm unique. I'm not like everyone else. I don't want to put on some kind of perfect look so that everyone's going to think how perfect I am. No, I just want to be me. And if somebody can't love me for who I am, can't be my friend for who I am, then tough luck for them. That's their loss. And really, you need to be able to challenge your own mind with statements like this so that you take back power and become shameless. You do not let the mind shame you. You do not let the mind put you down. You do not let it belittle you in this way. So, my dear friend, I think with all of this, you're going to find yourself equipped to deal with one of the most powerful onslaughts the mind has with which to push you down. Think of the mind as an adversary, like if you were in a tennis match, or if you were in football, or if you were in boxing. This is your adversary, and you need to stand up to it. You need to be able to let it know that there is a whole other side and that you are not falling for its nonsense. Join me in doing this with our mind, all of us. Let's all get together and let's push back the bully within. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe and like the video and share it with your friends. See you in the next one.